We're going to look at the best things of the Bible that God has to offer us in life. And last week we looked at the best known in the Bible. This week we were going to look at the best yes in the Bible, but I thought it's Mother's Day, so we might look at something about being the best mum you can be from biblical truths. I think that'd be a really good idea. And we're going to look at some attributes, some principles that make people great mothers. Now, if you're not a mother, this is not permission for you to grab your mobile phone and pretend to be reading the Bible while you're playing Angry Birds. Because I know there's a number of people, if you're a man, you're never going to be a mum. And some others here are not mums yet, this doesn't really apply to me. The Bible is filled with laws and principles. It's filled with them. These laws and principles tell us how to make life work and make what makes a law a law, or a principle is to work anywhere, anytime, any place. If something works in one culture and doesn't work in another, it's not a law. It's not a principle. It's bad. If something works in one age and not another age, it's not a law, it's not a principle, it's a fashion statement. And isn't that funny when you look at your mum and dad's wedding photos? What were you thinking? Everyone thought that back then. If something works for you and not for me, that's not a law. That's not a principle. You got lucky. That was random chance. Can you imagine how it would be like in our world if gravity worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but Saturdays and Sundays didn't work? It'd be just crazy. Laws and principles work anywhere, anytime, any place. So this morning I want to share with you 4 principles for being the best mum. Forget about being the best mum. You're not a mum. Being the best person. Being the best dad. Being the best brother. Here's a prophetic statement, maybe being the best boyfriend, best girlfriend. What George Washington once said, all I am, I owe to my mother. It seems to me some of the greatest people in history would say, what I am is a byproduct of what my mum did for me. And there's a character in the Bible, one of the greatest characters you'll ever read of in the Bible, and that's what he could have said. And his name was Moses. Moses was the kind of man he was because of the type of mother he had. In fact, he didn't have one mum, he had 2 mums. And you go, and they're both great mothers. You go, Wayne, how do you know that both of these mothers were good? Well, it's easy. Both of these mothers loved him and they loved babies. Anyway, let me get into this and give you a little bit of context to start off. The Hebrews had been living in Egypt for 400 years. There was a drought 400 years ago, and Joseph got his family and wiped out. This drought was so bad. And his dad, his mum, his brothers and sisters, the whole lot, and they moved to Egypt. The problem was the drought lifted after about 14 years. They all stayed in Egypt. And they stayed in Egypt because it was comfortable for them, they were prospering there, but they were in the wrong place in the wrong time, and they just settled down for comfort. And they bred like rabbits. That freaked the Egyptians out, because when there was just a few hundred of them, they didn't mind. But 400 years on, they had bred like rabbits. And it freaked out Egypt, it freaked out Pharaoh, who said, I know what I'll do, I'll stop this. Every male child that gets born, I want you to throw them in the Nile River and drown them like I can't say like a cat in a bag, but you can believe me. We'll just do that. Throw them in the Nile River and drown them. Moses' birth mother, Jochebed, was a Hebrew woman, so she had a choice to make. The society which she lived in made it virtually impossible to keep her child. Babies cried, they do that. Not only they cried, they like to cry like at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you're a mother, you know what it's like to be walking up and down the hallway at 3 o'clock in the morning going, why can't he wake up and do this job for me? And it's very hard. For Moses' mum, it was even harder. Because outside houses were Egyptian guards, and if they heard a crying baby, they wanted to come in there and do a little nappy inspection. And they go, that's a boy. And for us to speak with a little boy. It was a very cruel, cruel time. Thousands of baby Hebrew boys were killed at that time. It was just, you can't hide a crying baby. Talk to any mum, they come to church. Mum comes to church, she's just, right? She just had a baby. And as they come through that door with the baby the first time, everyone was there, oh, the baby's so cute, it's such a lovely baby, they want to hug the baby. Colin Ginger wants to hug their baby, wants to nurse that baby, he doesn't want to give that baby back. Unless it has a dirty nappy. Oh yeah, I've never seen him change a nappy for a baby. And everyone's going around, oh, what a beautiful baby. Church starts, you take your seat, put your little things down, it's nice, you're nursing your baby. 30 minutes in, God's Spirit's starting to move. And what does your baby do? Your And the whole church, 30 minutes ago, oh, what a cute baby, love that baby. They turn their eyes and they look at death upon you. Can't you shut that kid up? Things change so quick. This is a fearful time for Jochebed. And the fear is justified. Everyone knew someone that had lost a baby boy. Jochebed must have prayed and prayed and prayed when she felt pregnant. Lord, give me a girl, give me a girl, give me a girl. When she had a boy, she must have gone, God, why didn't you answer my prayer? It's just she loved her son and simply couldn't allow her son to be thrown away like a used bit of tissue paper. So she puts her own life on the line. She could have taken the easy choice and chosen death. But she said, I might be between a rock and a hard place. But if there's a choice between the Egyptian butchers and the Nile River, I'll choose the Nile River with the crops any day of the week. Choosing life was not popular back then. They put her own life at risk. But guess what? Choosing life is not that popular in Australia today either. Today, the most dangerous place for a baby today is to be in its mother's womb. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's not a popular. Every time a mother chooses life, what she does is she lays aside all her own goals, all her own interests, and all her own dreams for the needs of another. And she'll eventually know that pimply-faced little baby's going to turn into a pimply-faced teenager and say some of the most encouraging words teenagers have been able to say. He's like, I hate you. Why am I so ugly? I look just like you. What an encouraging word that is that mothers get to hear. What would you know? You know nothing. You have no idea what I'm going through. I hate you. Why won't you treat me like an adult? And by the way, I need more money. Choosing life was not an easy decision for Jochebed. And it would appear a lot of people struggle with that issue today. Do you realise in Australia, every year, we have 75,700 Medicare-funded abortions. 75,700. Pro-life groups estimate the real number to be 100,000 people, because some people don't worry about the Medicare payment, they just pay it for themselves. That's a huge number. Now I know in some cases, medically, an abortion, it probably has to take place. It probably makes some sense. It's just if you knew a woman that was pregnant, she had 8 kids already, 3 were deaf, 2 are blind, 1 is mentally retarded, and she has syphilis, would you recommend that she has an abortion? Because if you would say yes, you've just killed Beethoven. The first principle, we've got 4. The first principle is Jochebed believed in self-denial. She laid down her life, self-denial. So that her son, she denied herself so her son could have a life. That, by the way, is the principle of greatness. Jesus gathers his leadership team together and he gives them a leadership lesson on greatness. He says, if any of you want to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross and follow me. Take up your desires, follow me. Lay aside your desires and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you'll lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? To which I think people would say, no, nothing's worth more than your soul. If Judas, here was an example, Judas wouldn't lose his life, he tried to hold on to his life. Judas didn't like discomfort, he didn't like sacrifice, he didn't like the idea of pain or service, so he did everything to avoid that. And it cost him his life. The rest of Jesus' disciples went to him and said, we not might be much, you know. He's a tax collector. No one likes him. I'm a fisherman. That guy over there, the other guy, Simon, he's a terrorist. We might not be much. He was a zealot. That's what he used to go around at night trying to kill Romans. That's what a zealot means. We might not be, but Lord, what we are, here we are. If you can use us, we're available. Those guys changed the world. And our culture today is what it is because of those guys 2,000 years ago. The price they paid in laying down their life. So, Moses, I said before, actually had 2 mothers. His second mum was Pharaoh's daughter. She was a princess. So Jochebed puts a little baby in a basket. She lines it with pitch so it won't leak. She puts it into the Nile River. And tears must have trickled down her face as he watches this little basket floating away and thinking, I don't know if I'm never going to see my little baby boy again. And all she can do is pray. And so she prays. We sometimes think prayer is like the last resort. You go to the doctor and you go, can you give me the news? And oh, sorry, all you can do is pray. It's that bad. All we can do is pray like the last resort. Prayer is never the last resort. resort is the place we should go to first. It's the place we should go to first. So there she is. I'm imagining the text doesn't say, but I cannot imagine this lady is not praying. Praying for a little boy, and she sees this basket slowly float off into the distance. Now Jochebed's sister is there, and she's watching, and she's just kind of watching as it floats off. She's going by the riverbank, watching it as it goes by. And eventually the basket gets caught in some reeds. And where it does, Pharaoh's daughter, a princess, comes down, and that's where she would have a bath. The princess sees the basket, and she tells the slave girl, would you go down and check out that basket? I'd like to see what's in that basket. And we pick this up. Exodus chapter 2, verse 6. When the princess opened it, she saw a baby. The little boy was crying. That's probably what drew her attention to it. And she felt sorry for him. This must be one of the Hebrew children, she said. Now get a load of this. Her father had passed a law because he lived with fear, and fear will always make you do stupid things. He lived in fear, he passed a law, kill all the baby boys. How would you like to be remembered that? I killed the baby boys. Her father has passed this law, and now she's saying the boy his decree should be killed. It would have been so easy for the princess to just go, I'm just going along with Dad's wishes, and guys, Roman soldiers, Egyptian soldiers, do what you've got to do. Take care of this baby. Make it die. It's just she doesn't do that. She chooses life. Now get at this. Both mothers lived in a society that had decreed certain children shouldn't live. Our culture does the same thing in a rough way. If a girl in Australia finds herself in an unplanned pregnancy, there's a website they can go to. It guarantees to be not judgmental, and I'm not going to mention it because I don't want to get sued. It offers a counselling service that says, we guarantee not to impose our values on you and not to judge you. There she is more likely to be encouraged to give that baby an abortion, to be terminated that pregnancy, than anything else. You go, how do you know that? Because last year, there were 75,700 medically funded abortions in our nation. There were 68 legal adoptions. 68 local adoptions. Isn't that amazing? Now I want you to understand something. Moses lived because Jochebed and Pharaoh's daughter princess chose life. Now I know there are many in our nation who have had abortion. Our culture has made it so acceptable that it's often chosen before a woman or a girl has the time to even consider the implications. And men have been known to say things to girls like, and before the girls even really thought about the implications that's going to happen, they say things they can throw guilt on people like, we've got a really good thing happening here, and that baby's going to wreck it. You haven't finished your education. We have travel plans to bear that baby now. That trip to Bali's off. That trip to Europe's off. It's going to wreck our plans. We want the dream house. That baby's going to come between us and the dream house. Let's just abort that baby, and we'll revisit this several years down when it's in a more suitable time. And I understand there's been a lot of guilt thrown on girls. Decisions that have been pushed onto them, and it's just really hard. We all have freedom of choice, but none of us have freedom of consequences. And from my very limited understanding, there have been girls that have struggled with the aftermath of that decision, and it's been devastating for them. Now I want to say one more thing before we move on. You may know someone that's had an abortion. You may be someone that's had an abortion. Last week we looked at the greatest no in the Bible, and it stands for everything. Romans 8:1 says, there is therefore, like there once was, but now there's not, no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Our God is a forgiving God. God's plan for all of our lives is that we would all stand forgiven. We're all guilty of something, but because of Christ's sacrifice, we stand non-condemned. We're all guilty, but we all stand non-condemned. We see that in the story of Moses. Moses grew up to be a prince of Egypt. As a prince, he saw the oppression of the Hebrew people. And he tries to stop the oppression. It's not a good plan. He tries to stop the oppression of the people. He looks around and he sees this Egyptian soldier just beating the living daylights out of this Hebrew. He looks around and he goes, no one's watching. He's up high. He gets the biggest rock he can. And when the Egyptian's not looking, he drops it on his head. Kills him. He thought, it's good, I'll just do this every day a few times and my people will be set free. Plan didn't work out too well. His dad, Pharaoh, he found out. Did not go down too well at all. And so this adopted son, he has to run, he flees for his life. And many years later, like 40 years later, Moses returns to Egypt where he grew up. But he's not coming back as a boy this time. He's coming back as more than a man. He's coming back as the mouthpiece of God. And he goes up to Pharaoh, who was probably at this time his brother. And he goes, let my people go. Conversation didn't go down too well. And the guy goes, as if, why would I let my slave force go? They didn't have remote controls back then, so you needed slave force to check the channel. And you needed to do everything. They didn't have dishwashers, the slaves were great. He says, let my people go. He says, no, I'm not going to let them go. So Moses sends all these plagues. If you ever seen Prince of Egypt, Ten Commandments, you've seen these plagues. And every time a plague comes, oh, I'm sorry, you guys can go, I'm sorry. As soon as the plagues remove, no, you can't go. So 9 plagues on. The country's been devastated through them. And he still won't let them go. And there was one final plague, the death angel. And just like Pharaoh killed all the baby boys, God's final plague against these people that were so cruel was that the firstborn in Egypt would die that night. And that night, the Bible says, there was great wailing in Egypt that night, when the firstborn of every house passed away. It's just that no one had to pass away. All they had to do was sacrifice a lamb, get the blood of the lamb, and apply it to the lintels, to the doorpost, the jambs of their front door. And the angel would go over and go, it's fine, and just pass over and no one would die. Most of the Hebrews did that, and some Egyptians did that, and all who did it did not pass away. God doesn't want to judge anyone. The whole idea is to give people a chance to live. I don't know who you are, I don't know what you've done, but I know this. If you apply the blood of the Lamb, not a lamb like that, I mean the Lamb, Jesus Christ, the Lamb that shed his life, laid down his life on Calvary 2,000 years ago. If you apply his blood to your life, you will be not condemned. You'll never be condemned. You'll never suffer the consequences of being separated from God. And God will take your sin and remove it as far as the east is from the west. You will stand in the state of no condemnation and go, Wayne, how do you do that? I mean, you have to go to an abattoir or something? You have to do that. You ask Christ to take his right place in your life. That's how you apply the blood. Make him Lord of your life and ask him to take away your sin. And you will be saved this day. But as many as called upon the name of the Lord, they will be saved. Why would God do that for us? He does that because God is a God who chooses life. Not just life for the unborn, but also for those who have made decisions that have brought shame on our life, guilt on our life, decisions that have robbed us our lives of joy and the promise God created for us to have. It's only by the blood of Jesus that we have any hope in this world. Here's the second principle. The second principle is this. Moses became the kind of man he was because his mother did everything she could for him. Now, I'm not suggesting that she picked his clothes off the floor, because no mother would do that a lot. I think some kids think that they have a clothes fairy at home, so they just drop everything on the floor. And they come back the next day and it's washed and ironed in the floor. That's not the clothes fairy, that's mum. Now, I want to say she did everything. I'm not suggesting she enabled him and let him be reckless, but she did do a lot of things for him. Jochebed hid Moses in order to save his life. I don't know, maybe other Hebrew mothers tried to hide their children as well. It's a hard thing to hide a pregnant girl. You see girls when they fall pregnant, some of them they just get, it's a secret. Don't tell anyone. And then some of them, I'm going to tell you anyway, but promise not to tell anyone. Yeah, it's okay, I won't tell anyone. We don't, that's a secret you can't keep for long. It's really hard to keep that secret for a long time. Eventually it shows. I remember once, man, it was a stupid thing I did. I've done a number of stupid things. But this was a bad one. There's a lady came to church, first time. Look at her go. She said, baby. So then go, when's the baby due? She said, there's no baby due. She never came back. I send my apologies to that nameless lady. You can't keep secret you're pregnant. Pregnant women stick out in crowds. The Egyptians would have been waiting for the day that that baby would no longer, that lady, the day that Jochebed would no longer be pregnant. And they'd come and inspect her baby. And so it's true. Jochebed succeeded in hiding her child. And she did it for 3 whole months. I don't know how she did that. Maybe she walked around with a pillow under her tummy for 3 months and had a baby and just pretended she hadn't had the baby yet. But even if she did that, that kind of deception can only work for a short period of time. Because even Egyptians know you can't stay pregnant forever. Eventually, you've got to give birth. And then they take your child, do an inspection. There was a boy that grabbed that boy, throw him in the Nile River, let him float down that croc's out to sea. How's she going to save her baby? She gets a bit creative. If Pharaoh wanted her child to be thrown in the river, that's where she'd put him. But not before she'd given her boy a chance. But that's why she did everything for her son. She gave that boy a chance. She did everything to give him a chance. That's the job of all of us, to give people a chance, sometimes a second chance. So she and her husband built a little boat for him, a basket. They covered it with pitch on the inside. Then they get down to the shore of the Nile. She doesn't put him in the current where she's going to get washed down and the crocs will get him there. She's got to be smarter than that. She puts him in a sheltered place, a place where he could be found. And it's very likely that she scattered for the best place to be found. And if he's going to be found, she wants him to be found by someone that will give him a chance for life and not be put to death. The only person with that kind of influence was Pharaoh's daughter. So I don't think it's by chance that he floats where Pharaoh's daughter takes a bath. So there they go. Now, I could be wrong about some of the details, but it makes sense to me. And whether I'm right or wrong in some of my speculation, Jochebed had done an awful lot of planning to make sure her child would survive. She did everything she could to save her son. And that's what we're called to do. And then there's Pharaoh's daughter, Moses' adopted mum, the princess. She loves this boy. She takes him to her home and makes her her own son. And she, like Jochebed, did everything she could to take care of his boys as well. And in Acts it says this: Moses was taught in all of the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was powerful in both speech and action. Pharaoh's daughter wanted Moses to have all the advantages that his culture could afford. Her son wasn't going to be a slave working in the palace. He was going to be a leader. She succeeded in building him to be a man who was powerful in speech and action. This guy was a strong brute. He's strong in action. She did everything to give her the power to give her son an edge, an advantage from being the daughter of Pharaoh. So both of Moses' mum loved him so much they did everything they could to give him every advantage he could have. But only Jochebed gave him one thing that changed his life. Now Pharaoh's daughter, the princess, got him in the best school, best university, got him in the best gym, gave him the best food. She supplied him with everything that was the best. He became a man that was powerful in word and speech. But she had supplied him with training and education. And in the Hebrews it says this: it was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. What's that about? There was something Pharaoh's daughter had not supplied him with. Something was missing from his extensive education from the University of Egypt. In 1943, there was a guy by the name of Abraham Maslow. Many of you have heard of him. If you've done any higher education at all, you've probably come across this guy more than once. He wrote a theory of human motivation. Today, most people study this at some point in life. The first need that Maslow had, can you see that? The first need that Maslow had is the physiological. And the physiological needs were things like this. The things we need for human survival. We need to eat food. We need to drink. If we don't have air, you will not thrive. You will die. Food, air, water, clothing, roof over your head. These are all things we need to survive. Moses' adopted mum not only gave him these things, she gave him the best of these things. He had the best food. That's why he became a strong brute. He had the best clothes. He lived in the best house, and he lived in the best street and the best house in the land. The princess, his mother, employed Jochebed. The princess employed Jochebed, the biological mum, to be his nanny. So all of these physical needs were met. The second need is safety. When one's physical needs are met, we need to feel safe. There are people all around the world that have great houses, have great assets, great food, great clothes. Yet they don't have a sense of safety, and they suffer from something called post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of soldiers struggle with that because they see things, they don't feel safe, and their adrenaline levels, their anxiety levels are too high for too long. They just can't cope, and they really suffer. So we've got to have a sense of safety, otherwise we're going to really struggle in life. Everyone struggles if we don't have their safety needs met. The third hierarchy, and Moses had that one down pat. He felt safe, he felt secure, he thrived in this area. Maslow's third hierarchy of need is love and belonging. According to Maslow, humans need to have a sense of belonging and acceptance among their social groups. Moses had that. The moment the princess took him in, he was made to feel part of the family. Unlike Moses' biological mum, he was not a slave. He wasn't a slave at all. He had servants now that did things for him. He was a prince. He was a welcome part of their family. He wasn't considered a second-rate part of their family. He was a prince. Maslow's fourth hierarchy of need is esteem. We all need to feel respected. And once again, his adopted mum made sure that Moses had a good sense of self-esteem. People never act in a way inconsistent with the way they see themselves. From time to time, I've seen a beautiful young lady, and she has a boyfriend. And you look at her and you go, what is she thinking? She's a beautiful young girl. And she's going out with a guy that doesn't have a job, never had a job, doesn't plan to ever have a job. The car he drives is not registered, but he does not care. And it only goes 2 days a week. And the best feature of the car is the poppy guys that hang down from the rearview mirror. The guy has disrespect for his mum. He's crude and he's rude. He takes drugs and has no money and is like a leech, just sucking life out of everyone around him. You look at him and go, what is she seeing in him? The reason she gets out of him is because she thinks he's my only chance for happiness. No one else would love me. I'm ugly. People never act in a way inconsistent with the way they see themselves. She thinks that's the best chance. It's my only chance for happiness, so I better go for it. I don't feel loved, and he makes me feel loved. That was not the case with Moses. He had a great sense of self-esteem. He was a prince. He knew who he was. And so he feels confidence in himself. That's a good thing to have. Now, Maslow was too young to have what we call self-actualization. So if Maslow was alive when Moses was around, he would have gone up to his princess mum and his real biological mum and go, you guys are doing a great job raising your son. You should get a big tick. You should be real proud. He's going to achieve greatness in his life. Big tick. Excellent job raising your son. His parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts and friends and nephews and nieces, we can supply people we love with the best education that money can supply. But without God at the centre, our child's life will have an emptiness that nothing else can fill. And that's what the thing that his princess mum didn't give him a relationship with God. That's the third principle. Jochebed passed on to her son a faith in God. Great mums, great parents, great dads pass on a faith to their kids. Solomon, when he's really, really, really old, he wrote this book called Ecclesiastes. It's a bit of a weird book to read. It's very negative, a lot of it's negative. And he's kind of looking over his life. You're going to get learn this. Solomon had more wealth than anyone in this room. In fact, if we put all of our wealth together, he still had more. He was in any area of life you think you've succeeded, he did it better. And you think you were good at picking up bills, this guy had a wife for every day of the week. Every area, he had money, he had power, he had influence, he had success. Yet towards the end of his life, he goes this. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher that said. Completely meaningless. He's like having a little midlife crisis. Because he's gotten old and he's surveying his life and he's going, what's it all about? Right at the end of this book he says, here is my final conclusion. Fear God and obey his commands, for this is everyone's duty. What's he going about? Solomon's looking over his life and he goes, sure, I got a lot of money. I gave my kids a great education. They had, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he took care of the first four, but he didn't pass his faith on to his kids. He was so caught up with life that his kids did not have the faith in God that he had in God. He failed, big fail. And I don't care how successful you might think you are in life, Solomon was more successful. Yet in one sense he failed, because he never passed on a faith. In Ephesians 2, he said, in 10, Paul says this, for we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so that we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. It's our job to pass on the faith to the next generation. Then number 4, Jochebed. Only God can help us realise our huge possibilities and promises. Number 4 principle. Jochebed gave her son a purpose. Remember how she was recruited by the princess to take care of her own son? She did more than change his nappies and take him to the park so he could ride on the swing for hours. She gave her son a sense of purpose. She spoke values to her son, which is amazing.